Hello and welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast about the A-Leagues, Premier League and more. My name's Tommie C, and this week on the pod, Straya Cup sets galore, an extended version of MTAG's Anti-Power Rankings for the Prem, and an MTAG FPL prize giveaway. This week on the pod, we've got Mikey. Mikey, it's great to have you on the pod again. It's been, a little while in between drinks, I think, but great to have you on again.
Glad to be back.
And as well, we've also got George. And George, I think you're dropping in and out a little bit here, but we'll see how we go. How are you, George, over in the Emerald, not the Emerald Isle, but over in the UK?
Going well, Tommie. Going well. Yeah, having some technical issues as usual, but no. I think I'm here for the duration. So apologies to all the listeners that hate my voice. But yes.
Well, for those that are on the video version, you'll be able to not see George. So it's just like as if you were listening to the audio version, which is great. But
what's that saying? Good bit of face for radio. So that's good.
Alrighty, boys. Shall we just hook straight into moment of the week, though? Mikey, you want to go first, mate?
Is probably everyone. I don't know if anyone else has got this on their moment of the week, but. Speaking of the cup sets, Oakley Cannons defeating Sydney FC. And the moment I wanted to pick out particularly was the goalkeeping situation.
Oh.
The Oakley Cannons, due to injury of pretty much their entire squad, had a 14-year-old goalkeeper on their bench and defeated Sydney FC in the cup. That's my moment of the week.
How are they allowed to do that? Like, surely there's a minimum age, right, for like a men's game. I always thought it was 16.
Some child labour laws in here.
Exactly. I mean, like, this is a professional match, right? Like,
yeah.
It boggles the mind a little bit. But look, it was a pretty good story. And I guess the other part of that was obviously with all of those injuries, they had Luis Italiano fly in from overseas just for the game too. And I thought they'd just sort of he was just the ringer for the game. I didn't realize he'd come basically to help them out because 8 of their goalkeepers at the club were all injured.
Yeah. Which I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, me either. It's weird. It's just one of those sort of freak of nature things. But great moment of the week. It was also going to be mine as well. But
sorry to pip you the post there.
No, mate, that's the benefit of going first. George, what about you, mate? What was your moment of the week?
Oh, it's to do with the transfer window, boys. You know, there's always a couple of crazy stories that come out of it on deadline day, and the Bamba Dieng story. So the Marseille Dieng story, the Marseille striker who basically had agreed a deal to go to Leeds. Leeds were expecting him to turn up and do a medical. He then pulled the pin on that and agreed to join Nice. Leeds were obviously, the Leeds. I think the boss of the Leeds basically had tweeted that they were signing him, and it was all happening. So he turns up to Nice, unbeknownst to Leeds, and fails his medical at Nice. So not sure where he's at now, whether he's back at Marseille or quite a funny story, and one of those ones that you kind of don't believe that could occur in such a professional environment where they're dealing with lots of money and so many intermediaries sort of doing deals. So it's quite funny. So
Peak League
and Premier League.
Yeah, true. Yeah. It really just leads him on there, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
There's some niche content there. I tell you what, though, it's funny. The more you get to know sort of some of the personalities that are in football, the more just surprising it is that the whole thing just doesn't fall apart, because there are so many just dodgy characters in football, especially like agents and the like. So I'm not at all surprised that this kind of thing happened. I mean, obviously, like we were talking in the group chat this week about the Willian saga, about how Spurs had paid for his flight to London, and then he ended up signing for Chelsea, and there was a few deals that fell through, I think, due to visas and stuff in the post-Brexit UK as well. So it was a pretty wild deadline day, and we're going to talk a little bit more transfer chat after moment of the week and goal. But Look, my moment of the week was going to be about the cup set. So let's hook straight into own goals. So, Mikey, you're up first, mate.
My own goal for the week is not something that not news that's happened this week, but I stumbled across it today. I put it in the group chat earlier today. It's a compilation of all the A-League membership prices for the season. And look, I mean, clubs have different, venues cost different things in different places. I know the Glory pay a pretty extraordinary fee for their use of their stadium, and I know the Mariners don't, but the Glory are paying. The Glory members will be paying over $300 for their membership this season, whereas the Mariners will be paying just over $100 for their membership. And we know the Glory won't be playing at home for about the first few rounds of the A-League anyway. So that's my own goal of the week. I don't know how they're justifying over $300 for a Perth Glory membership, but that's what they're charging.
Maybe it's because they're not going to be having any home games, and so they've got to pay like some sort of commission to the other clubs or something like that. Damo, you've just joined us after putting your eldest to bed, so welcome to the pod for this week. But mate, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this as well on the Perth Glory membership prices.
It's pretty absurd, isn't it? It's a lot of money to watch a shit team play football.
I tell you what, they're not 3 times the value of someone like the Mariners, or even I think they're close to still. Or actually, I think they're close to almost twice the price of like Melbourne City, who I think are the second cheapest. So yeah,
well, you got to pay for storage somehow.
still paying him off.
Yeah.
Wow. George, what about you, mate? What was your moment of the week? Sorry, your own goal.
My own goal is going out to Scotty Parker, who was sort of sacked after losing 9-0 to a pretty average team known as Liverpool. So yeah, I mean, 4 games into the season, picked up had a pretty tough run in terms of who Bournemouth were playing. So they won their opening game against Aston Villa, lost 4-0 against City and 3-0 against Arsenal. Next fixture was Liverpool, lost 9-0, and sort of Scotty Parker came out at the end of that game and sort of was disappointed and kind of alluded to the fact that the club were going to struggle this season unless they, invested a little bit more heavily in the squad and were committed to putting pressure on the owners to kind of pull their finger out a little bit. And they reacted by sacking him. So, and you know what? Last night they came back to, beat Nottingham Forest. So maybe it worked. Who knows? But I feel pretty bad.
That manager bounce, right? Yeah.
But it's 4 games into the season. So, that it's Wolves-esque. Watford-esque.
Yeah.
Watford-esque. Sorry, yeah. But yeah, and I'd sort of talked him up, in the season preview pod. So RIP Scott, and hopefully we see him back in the Premier League when another manager gets inevitably sacked.
Well, what's funny is that it's so early in the season that I don't think many people have even sort of drawn up a short list of who they would sort of consider to be the front runner to be the new Bournemouth manager. I mean, I haven't even seen any sort of rumors about who it's going to be. That's sort of how shocked everyone was just about all of this and how it's panned out.
Yeah.
Damo, you've just joined us, obviously. Did you have an own goal or a moment of the week that you wanted to throw out there?
I'll jump in with an own goal, and it was a quote I saw from Martin Braithwaite at Barcelona. Obviously, everyone knows about what's going on at Barcelona, and he, well within the terms of his contract, doesn't want to leave the club, and he wants to get paid for the remainder of his contract, and refuses to step down. And there was an article written about him, or someone asked him a question, and he said, "Quite frankly, I don't care what the fans think about me." So he's definitely dug his own grave, and it's pretty funny. He's got the Euros to prepare for. He's an important player for Denmark going into the World Cup. Important player for Denmark, and I'm sure the Danes wouldn't be very happy that he's just sitting on the bench at Barcelona collecting his 300,000 euros a week.
Could have just sort of sat on the bench and riding around on the horses and just Darryl just doing his thing, but yeah, like you say, it's important that he plays and stays fit for the World Cup coming up in November. But there's that whole saga with I was going to call him Daryl Braithwaite then. Martin Braithwaite is just a mess. Like, you consider how he was first signed from Leganés after the transfer window closed, and then they barely played him. And then the final kicker was Leganés couldn't sign a replacement player, and Leganés ended up getting relegated. So just Barcelona just shitting all over the rest of the league.
Have they ever signed someone completely legally? It seems like a prerequisite that it has to be against the rules of the league or against the rules of like international anything. I don't understand how they're still a company.
Financial fair play as well.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking, isn't it? And I don't think I feel like it's saying that it's left a bad taste in people's mouth is sort of a bit of an understatement when it comes to Barcelona over the last couple of months. It's just, yeah.
Weren't their fans
Club?
Yeah, weren't their fans Tommie booing Frankie de Jong because he didn't want to get paid his deferred wages? just write that 17 million euros off or whatever it was,
But who? Like, and sometimes we do sort of like to remind ourselves that like this is someone's job, it's their livelihood, right? Who would go to their employer and say, "Look, don't worry about like the millions of euros or pounds or dollars that I'm owed. Just don't worry about it." And imagine like someone that's like, "Oh yeah, I'd really love like Coles," and like coming into Coles and heckling like a Coles employee or something, saying, "No, you shouldn't get paid." It's like, what?
You're working here for free.
Doesn't make
the
sense.
honor of the badge.
Yeah. I'm gonna come and boo you at work tomorrow, Tommie.
Oh, you wouldn't be the first person to do that.
Well, if we did that to Tommie, we might get in trouble. So,
in fact, as I was leaving work, I think it was on Thursday afternoon, there was a bloke on St Kilda Road in cable ties. So it does happen.
You must have been booing people in your office.
From the street. Oh dear. All right. Let's get into my own goal for this week though was it may not have, I don't think it was actually this week, but given that it's been a little while since we've done a pod, I'm gonna have a little bit of creativity here, and it's we're going to Scotland for this one. Dundee United obviously have signed a couple of Australians in the last couple of months with Mark Birighitti and Aziz Beich going there, and so a few Australians have sort of got like a bit of an eye on the Scottish Premier League at the moment. Dundee United got eliminated from, I think it was the Europa Conference League qualifiers, and so they're out of Europe. And then straight after that match, they had a game against Celtic, and everyone thought, "Oh, geez, like this is Ange's Celtic, right? They're amazing right now." And Birighitti and Beich both got dropped for the game, and Celtic just ran riot, beat Dundee United 9-0. Obviously, just complete justice for Birighitti and Beich that the coach ended up getting sacked after that. So, yeah, you just love to see it. And I don't know if Birighitti and Beich ended up playing over the weekend for Dundee United, but you hope that the new manager figures out just how important they are to that team. So.
Well, I saw it was beIN Sport's biggest ever ratings for a Scottish League game in Australia, apart from the Old Firm. So I'm really glad that 9-0 thumping really dispelled the rumours of it being a Farmers League. Did wonders for the league.
I saw this week, boys, that Champions League is back, and Ange, I don't know whether it's a home or away game, but Celtic have got Real Madrid, so I think there'll be a lot of eyes on that, and the eyes of the world will be on Ange's Celtic, and I don't think they're going to be able to pull off a miracle, but it's pretty exciting that he's coming up against the European champions, and he's on center stage because it's now Ange's Celtic, isn't it? So very exciting.
Much so. Mm-hmm. Alrighty though, we're gonna crack on now into a little bit of Australian football and some transfer chat. First up, we're going to talk a little bit of Straya Cup. In the last couple of weeks, we've had the quarterfinals of, and I think even since the last pod, I think there was even some round of 32 games that were played as well. Damo, you went up to Broadmeadows to see Charlie Austin finish a penalty in the shootout there against Avondale. Have you warmed up since that game? Because I know it was pretty cold, pretty frosty there.
Yeah, it was horrible conditions. I think at one stage it was about -2 degrees in Broadmeadows if you factor the wind and the rain in. So not great for a Wednesday night, but yeah, it was good to go out and see some local football, and there was plenty of people there, and Charlie Austin was making himself known, so it was good.
Absolutely pesting, wasn't he? I think he gave a bit of a salute to the crowd after he got scored his penalty as well. So you'll love to see that, and he's just really firming up his status as sort of one of the characters of the A League heading into the season, which starts in about a month's time. Mikey, you I think went down to Casey, I think, didn't you? To see, I think it was Wellington that Melbourne City played down there. I think that
Phoenix.
it was City's first game at Casey since their move down there over I think just over 12 or 18 months ago, thereabouts, that they've since moved down there. How did that go?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you two things. It's really windy and it's really far away, like from everything. So I mean,
I could have told you that without having even going there. So,
well, I went to find out, and yeah, it was both those things, and the result was completely uninspiring and horrible. But and we played on the VFL Oval as well, which was fantastic viewing from ground level at an AFL Oval. It was a great night. But look,
and they lost as well.
Yeah, first time out in Casey wasn't the best one, but in the future we'll actually have facilities there, not a football oval, not an Aussie rules oval, which I think might help the experience be a little better. But yeah, all in all, it wasn't a great night out in Casey. But yeah, good to get to the cup while you're still in it.
Yeah, so Wellington, they ended up going through to the quarterfinals. They ended up losing to Macarthur Bulls, who are through to the semi-finals. But Western United, they weren't so lucky. They went out in a cup set. And Sydney also went out in a cup set as well, a famous cup set to Oakley Cannons as well, which, I mean, as you said already, Mikey, that's one of the all-time cup sets, I think, because I mean we've seen the likes of sort of Central Coast at their lowest ebb sort of get beaten by NPL teams, but I don't think we definitely haven't seen a team sort of the size of Sydney and a team like Sydney where their fans were talking up their premiership chances as well in the coming months, get knocked out in the Australian Cup as well.
By a team without goalkeepers.
Yeah, exactly. It does mean that the semi-finals have two NPL teams. So Sydney United, they beat another NPL team. They're going to be playing Brisbane Roar. They'll be hosting that game in Sydney. And then Oakley Cannons, of course, will also be hosting the McBulls after they beat Wellington as well. And I think that's not going to be played this week. I think it's going to be played mid the following week.
The 14th,
both of those two games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in theory, we could see two NPL teams in the final if there's two big cup sets. And I mean, Brisbane, they've looked okay so far in the Australia Cup. Damo, you've seen them a couple of times already. I was there with you once. But the McBulls, they look like they just absolutely tore Wellington apart. Apparently, they were very impressive last week as well. So it looks like they'll be pretty confident of going through to, I guess, their first final as well. But I think everyone's really hanging out for a dual NPL club final in the Australia Cup. That would be a lot of fun, I think.
Even if it wasn't, I'd love the Raw to have to travel to Oakley Cannons for a cup final. That'd be a funny one.
It would make things really awkward for Football Australia if one of the NPL teams does qualify, because I mean, in theory, they're meant to host the game, right? So. Yeah,
they'd have to move. They have to move it to Amy, you'd imagine. But yeah, it would be quite funny.
Oh dear. But yeah, so I guess stay tuned for how that pans out over the next couple of weeks. And I believe this year the Australia Cup is going to be played the week before the A-League kicks off, as sort of like a bit of a season opener, which I think that's actually a great idea. It does. You could make an argument that it's turning it into a preseason tournament, which kind of is, I guess, as a result. But I actually have liked how competitive all of the NPL teams have been, because by this point in the competition, then they're not out of their NPL season. So I think it's been really good that all of those NPL teams have been competitive, and they've been really great games to watch so far. Next up, as I mentioned before, we're almost a month away from the A-League kicking off. We've had a few big events over the last couple of weeks. We've had Allianz Stadium opening up. I don't think that's been officially used yet, but that's exciting. Obviously, we've seen with the Wanderers how big a challenge it can be when you're without your stadium for a couple of years. So Sydney will be very happy to get back into, I guess, their official home ground. The Mariners, they released their kit over the weekend. It's one that Jesse, I know, would describe as being a real shiny number, which is not particularly flattering for the Mariners kit. It just looks real cheap, like it's made out of the same material as like satin boxer shorts. Adelaide also released their kit, and this was a little bit controversial because it's got the broadcaster's logo on the back of the collar, which I don't think that was particularly popular. Boys, do you think that Paramount Plus or Channel 10 or both should be on the kit at all, or you think they should just get the hell off?
Why? What's the need? Where's the confusion? Either you're watching them live and it doesn't matter, or you're watching it on Channel 10 or Paramount Plus. Who's winning here? Put it somewhere else if you have to put it anywhere. It looks terrible at the back of the collar.
They didn't get the money's worth out of the TV deal last season, so the APL have just thrown in a little sweetener. Just chuck your logo on the kits.
We put ads over the goals, and now we're putting the logos on the back of the shirt.
Is that confirmed that every shirt in the A-League is going to have that on the back, or?
I haven't seen
for some reason it's just Adelaide.
Yeah, just Adelaide. They've just done a slide deal with Paramount Plus on the side.
I think it was spotted on the back of one of the Jets kits in the Cup, but yeah, I don't think anything's been said about it. It was just leaked in their kind of their photos of the kit.
Interesting. Also, this week we saw Soccer Twitter absolutely flipping out about the about Football Australia apparently is going to be ending or imploding late last week. Nothing ended up happening, but I tell you what, it was great to relive sort of circa 2012 of Facebook and lots of teenage girls where they would sort of say that where they were having like a bust up with a friend or something like that. It was just weird early 2000s sort of Facebook vibes about it, where no one could say what the details were, but everyone knew, and it was just really, really strange. One thing for me, really disappointed that there's still no A-League Fantasy out yet. I get the impression it is going to happen, but given that we're a month out, I would anticipate that we're pretty close to that being launched, if it's going to be launched.
Yeah, how sure you were about that?
Well, look, I'm trying to remain optimistic, because everything kind of points to it not happening, because all there really has been, and there hasn't been any leaks, it's all just been Danny Townsend saying, yeah, it's happening. So
he says a lot of things are happening.
Yeah.
He loves tweeting things and then just like leaving it.
Tommie, if there's any insight, the APL, the A-Leagues were hiring for a digital product owner, a very vague job description about 3 months ago, and they just reposted the ad last week. So if there's anything by that, it means either someone got the job and couldn't build the fantasy league, or no one actually ever was given the job.
Literally one job. Literally one job. Fucking hell.
So
how hard can it be?
if that's any indicator, I don't think we're getting one. Yeah.
Oh, that is just shit on my week. I'm sorry. That's terrible news. Oh well, yeah. Thanks for that, Damo. Glad to have you on the pod, mate.
You're welcome.
Damo, the insider.
Yeah.
In the
You
know.
can tell Damo's been doing some job hunting as well, I think. Just hanging out for the job ads. One final thing, speaking of people unemployed, Corey Brown looks to be looking possibly for a new club or for a new team, maybe a new
For
job,
a new hobby.
maybe a new career. There was heaps of rumors doing the rounds about
Yeah, get the
why he'd
bleep
been
button ready.
fired. Yeah.
Redacted.
Get the lawyers ready. Heaps of rumors doing the rounds about why Corey Brown had been sacked, and obviously it became very public between the PFA, the player union, and Football Australia as well, and the club too. So it was pretty untidy, I guess, and it'd be a real shame if like you kind of want to see sort of this resolved sooner rather than later, but yeah, just a really untidy situation that you hope sort of doesn't sort of drag on into the season. But ultimately, these things are pretty serious. They involve people's livelihood and stuff like that. So hopefully there's some sort of positive outcome can come out of this. Yeah, I think that's probably about as much as we can say on that before we have to sort of get the lawyers to check in on what we've said. Boys, let's get into a little bit of transfer chat though before we get into the Premier League anti-power rankings, and I'll rattle off a couple of the transfers that have been finalised sort of late in the Premier League or the international window. Lucas Paquetá has gone to West Ham. Obviously, big signing for them. Broke their transfer record, which I think previously was held by Allaire. Got Alexander Isak. He's gone to Newcastle as well. They broke their transfer record, and I think a lot of people would make a decent argument that that's a good player to break your transfer record on. I think he's pretty decent on the last couple of years FIFA as well, and I know he comes very highly rated. You got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang or Aubameyang, depending on where you're from. He's been signed by George's Chelsea over the last couple of days, late on in the window. George, you happy about that?
I think we needed a number 9, but yeah, let's sort of see how he slots in. So it's better than nothing. I think it's better than nothing.
I love it just for the fact there's another player that Arsenal fans will have to throw away the shirt of. Like every of those vintage pop-ups that happen, you look at the Arsenal section, it's all snake lasers, it's all like Van Persie's, it's all like Giroud. Yeah.
Yes.
And also, I think Aubameyang got a bad rap. I haven't seen the episodes yet, but in the All or Nothing, I think they gave him a bit of a bad rap there. So you know, it might be opportunity for him to come and set the record straight.
Yeah. He's just I think he's just looking forward to returning to London and probably finding his chromed out Lamborghini with 1,000 parking tickets still at the train station. just left it there getting tickets every day.
He just left it at the Heathrow car park.
Yeah, just at the drop-off area.
Yeah.
What I was saying earlier in the week, it's you can't underestimate how much players like their homes in London. Like it just seems like it's a bit of a merry-go-round at the moment. Williams back at Fulham.
Hope he didn't sell his place and he can just still got the keys.
George, can you relate at all? Like I know you live in London, so.
Yeah, no. I mean, with the rents going up in London, boys, you know, got to hold on to your property. So,
a couple of big signings for Manchester. And Anthony, he has been signed by Manchester United from Ajax.
Well, already.
Yeah, I know, right? This was a deal that just sort of got dragged out a long time. I think they ended up...
A bit of a bargain, wasn't he, Tommie? A bit of a bargain.
I can't remember the exact fee, but I think it was somewhere in the region of like 90 million euros, which is a lot of money, right? It's like sort of Pogba-esque sort of transfer fee. I know that he can do like a cool 360 dribble thing. I don't know how useful that is, but it's going to be very interesting to see if he's actually any good. there are some sort of promising signs for Manchester United under Eric Ten Hag over the last couple of games after a pretty shocking start to the season. But it will be very interesting, I guess, to see how that all pans out. I think the player that it affects the most is not Ronaldo. I think it's actually Rashford, because I think Rashford has actually made a reasonably promising start in the last couple of games. But with Anthony arriving, it looks like Sancho might go back out to the left, and then where does that leave Rashford, right? So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, I guess, how Anthony settles in, how quickly he goes how quickly he goes into the starting lineup, and what that means for Rashford as well. So, very interesting times there.
Would it have been easier or cheaper just by Ajax?
Yeah, probably at this point.
How much? Yeah, exactly. You got to feel for the Ajax supporters who every couple of years they uncover these absolute gems of players, and one good season, and then the pressure's on for them to leave. So
that's all right, because every little thing is gonna be all right.
We need another sing along with Tommie on MTAG.
Yeah. That's a good shout. Another big deal was that I think might have even gone under the radar a little bit. Was Akanji from the Dortmund centre back to Manchester City. He comes with like a pretty decent reputation, and I think because everyone was so focused on the Anthony deal, the Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang deal, that everyone hasn't really paid this much attention. But I think also because of the injuries that City have got, it looks like that's why they've gone in for him. But it's also another one that's going to be very interesting to see how quickly he goes into the starting lineup, if he's still even there in, I don't know, sort of 12 months' time, or whether or not they move him on or something like that. But really, really interesting deal.
Dortmund are known for their defending, so...
Well, they're struggling as well in the league at the moment too, so it is a little bit surprising that they didn't, or that they actually sold him. So the price must have been right. Must have been sort of Anthony like dollars.
I'm pretty sure they paid about £15 million for him. It was
really?
a bargain, like a literal bargain.
An actual bargain.
Yeah. So that just, I don't know why I thought that. I swear I saw a headline that said that the other day, or whenever it happened. I'm losing track of days.
Understandable, mate. You have had a big couple of days. Just hold on. I'm googling what he actually got sold for, assuming it actually says it in the article, which of course it doesn't. But yeah, all right. I'll have to take your word for it. That was a good deal.
We'll put our researchers onto that one, Tommie.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was me just then.
Buying you some time. The other one was Fofana as well. I think Chelsea ended up paying 70 odd.
Yep.
And he started last night as well.
Straight away.
George,
yeah.
What did you think of him?
I think I like how he looks. He's got this Grealish sort of sock action.
He's got a moustache.
He got a moustache too. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, you feel pretty comfortable slotting in, next to Thiago Silva and Koulibaly. So it's a pretty strong sort of pairing to come in and play next to.
Did you see the comments from Brendan Rodgers, which I think was before their game? It's a Sky Sports interview, and someone asked him about what he thought about the whole Fofana saga, and that he was refusing to play until he was sold. And Brendan Rodgers, he went in to defend him and said, "Look, he's a great young guy. I like him. I think he's going to have a great career. We wished he would have stayed." But it was interesting that he said, "I saw the comments in the media. I know who said them, and I can tell you it wasn't Wesley Fofana who said that." And whatever he meant by that essentially is, I took as saying his agent was speaking on his behalf, and his agent was turning him against Leicester and forcing the move. And that's sort of how I read that situation. But it was a really interesting interview that Brendan Rodgers went in to defend a player that sort of turned his back on the club, and that Leicester fans were sort of piling on.
Do you reckon the whole interview he was going, "Don't say good character"?
Yes. Say good character. No, he was sort of saying that, the agent, family and stuff like that had sort of gotten into Fofana's ear, and and sort of made him kind of push Leicester for the actual transfer. The truth be told, like Leicester's got no money. Like they were holding out for 70 odd, and they got what they wanted, and they were always going to sell him. Like they literally had no money. So what were they going to do?
No cash. No cash here.
No cash here. So, it's a lot to pay for someone who's had sort of one really good season and was basically out the whole other season. And Leicester have cashed in, and that's credit to them and their scouting network. But I think it's quite hypocritical for them to sort of turn on the player when they outwardly said they had no money. They'd set a valuation at 70 to 80 anyway, and when Chelsea hit that, they were going to be forced to sell. So, and Fofana, it's going to happen to a young player when a big club comes in for him, and the offer's sort of there or thereabouts. They're going to put pressure on the club to leave, and you saw Anthony do the same thing at Ajax.
George, are you thinking that you'd just be hoping that Chelsea haven't done a Harry Maguire here, or that the Fofana turns into another Harry Maguire? Expensive centre back from Leicester.
Yeah, well, Fofana's a bit younger, so he's got a bit more time. He's got a bit more time to prove
Smaller
himself.
head as well.
Smaller head, and we're not going to make him captain just yet. So
not yet. Give him 6 months, I guess. A couple of big Australian deals though as well. Matty Ryan, he's left Real Sociedad and he's gone to FC Copenhagen. Which is a great move for Matty Ryan. Obviously, he wasn't playing much in Spain. It looks like he's going to be first choice there. But they also qualified for the Champions League group stage, which it's also great that he's going to be playing at maybe not the highest level in Denmark, but he's still going to be playing in the group stage in the Champions League. So that's awesome for him.
And they've got Borussia Dortmund first game up. So
yeah, well. At least we know that they can't defend, so maybe there's a chance that all the action will be up the other end.
Well, that's Matty Ryan's end, Tommie.
Oh, yeah, shit. He's screwed.
He's coming under fire Tuesday night.
The other big deal, though, was Aiden Hrustic. Damo, your boy. He's going to Hellas Verona in Serie A, who... it looks like a good deal in the sense that at least he's going to be playing. He wasn't a regular at Eintracht Frankfurt, who were also in the Champions League, but at least he's going to be playing in Verona, which is good. The only problem, the only challenge with this deal is that Verona are currently just one spot, or they're in the spot above the relegation zone in Serie A. And I know it's only early days, but yeah, you just hope that. He doesn't strike me as the kind of player that you'd want to sort of dig in and just sort of slog through a relegation battle. It just doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. So hopefully they're able to play some good football and they can have a season away from the relegation zone. Alrighty, boys. Let's move on to Premier League. Anti-Power Rankings, though. This is something we've done sort of at the end of last season in the A-League when sort of the season, I wouldn't say it's dragging on a little bit, but it's just one way that we were sort of looking at how the season's progressing and how teams are going sort of independent of the table a little bit. And so with the pod not being a weekly occurrence over the next couple of months, what we're going to be doing is basically looking at how teams are going independent, I guess, of where they actually are on the table. So for those of you that are either listening on Spotify or looking at the YouTube version, you should be able to see a great graphic on the screen now, which is basically our power rankings. So, well, when I say ours, it's mine.
Just caveat that. Three of us, none of us had anything to do with this.
Hey, next time it will be ours.
But
maybe.
Look, boys, what I want to, I'll walk everyone through this, I guess, though, and because this is an opportunity, I guess, for some discussion. Hopefully, there's a little bit of disagreement about sort of how the three of you have looked at sort of some of the respective teams and how they're progressing this season so far.
And Tommie, just for the listeners' benefit, this is before the match day this week.
Correct. Yeah. So for those that are looking at it and listening along, you'll be able to see as they are right now. You'll be able to see their win, draws, and losses, and then we're also going to talk them through in descending order from top to bottom. So, in top spot, they're also first on the table as of the last couple of days, but they're top on my power rankings as well. The MTAG Anti-Power Rankings. We've got Arsenal first because they've won every game, and they're the only team that's done that. They haven't necessarily played the best team so far, but I think credit where credit's due. This Arsenal team, I think, probably wouldn't have won all of those games in the last couple of years. So I think they deserve to go top. Any disagreement there, boys?
No, I saw them. I saw them in Andy from the pod managed to snag some tickets for the first game of the season at Crystal Palace, and
Nice.
seeing Gabby Jesus live was pretty impressive. He's very quick, he's mobile, and him and Saliba and Zinchenko have really solidified that team. So
Jesus just resurrected from the dead, right? So
in Croydon, South London.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see where we put Arsenal in our sort of next power rankings when we come back next time, because I think between now and then they play Manchester United, Spurs, Liverpool, plus Manchester City and Leeds, plus all games in Europe as well. So it's going to be a very busy next few fixtures for Arsenal, and see if they can keep it up is probably the big question. But no questions asked really at the moment, but they've had no questions asked of them either.
Yeah, I agree with go, Mikey.
Forgive the cliche, but you can only beat what is in front of you. And exactly. And the other teams, I feel, just haven't been. I mean, we're not very far into the season, but like in seasons past gone, like if Liverpool or Chelsea dropped a game, there you go. Man City's won the title again, and they've been a bit inconsistent themselves. So Arsenal, fair play. So far, so good.
So next up, we've got Manchester City. I've put them as second. Even though they're undefeated, they've got the 4 wins and 1 draw. Obviously, they have just been incredibly hot, and Haaland just looks freakishly good. Like he's going to score 50 goals this year. But they have been a little bit uncharacteristically a little bit leaky in their defence. Obviously, conceded 3 against Newcastle, which obviously means it's a little bit easier to put them down into second place. But it does point to this City team being a little bit not suspect at the back, but that there's a chance. Whereas in previous seasons, you looked at that City side and you just thought, first of all, how are we even going to get the ball? And then it was a case of, okay, when we do get the ball, how are we going to try and even figure out how to score a goal? But at the moment, it does look like there's a bit of a way at the City defence.
Yeah, agree that you can score past them more easily, but they're also scoring more goals. So
yeah, if they're scoring 9 and you're scoring 4, it doesn't matter, right? So
yeah.
In third place, I've put Brighton, and although Brighton don't have, they've lost 1 game, they've won 3, drawn 1, lost 1. They're not third on the table. In fact, they're quite a ways down. They're actually fourth overall on the table. But for those that are looking at the graphic that we've got on the screen, you'll see that they're up from 12th, and what we're referring to there is an average of everyone's predictions across the MTAG panel and some of the experts who published. Some of the pundits who published sort of their predictions on social media, we just hoovered those up, and Damo's put them all into a spreadsheet and figured out an average of those. So the average was that Brighton were going to finish 12th, and so they're obviously the big movers, one of the big movers in up into third. But they've looked really impressive. Haven't necessarily got all of the results that would maybe go along with being third on the table, but they've looked really good so far this season.
I think they just passed the eye test, don't they, Tommie? They're just really good to watch at the moment. Graham Potter's got them. They're an exciting team to watch, and you don't really know what to expect from them week in, week out, apart from being entertained.
Yeah, I think that's always the challenge for them has been scoring goals, and the fact that they've been defensively solid, but also they've been able to find enough goals to sort of get them results has been really good for them.
Yeah, Pascal Gross has been scoring for them where he hadn't been last year, and let's see if that continues, given they've sold Mopé to Everton as well.
Oh, no real loss there. Mopé never used to score anyway.
In the goal column, yeah. It's true.
What is going to be funny is if Mopé actually sort of turns it on at Everton, I would be just absolutely shocked, right? He just turns into a prolific goal scorer.
I know we haven't taken this week's games into account, but he missed a bit of a sitter in the Merseyside derby yesterday.
I'm shocked. In fourth place, I've put Spurs, and Spurs, they're the first team that, the second team after City, but they've gone down one position. They are third on the table, but I've put them fourth. They've had pretty solid results, but they haven't been fully convincing so far. And look, I don't think Antonio Conte would be too concerned, I think, at this point, given that maybe he wants the team to sort of grow into the season a little bit. So I've put Spurs in fourth. Now, the next one, though, Manchester United, I've put them in fifth, and just an absolute roller coaster of a season for them so far. They were obviously absolutely putrid in the first couple of weeks, losing to Brighton and Brentford. But since then, I feel like, well, it's pretty much since they've dropped Ronaldo, things have sort of turned around a little bit there. And obviously they signed Casemiro and Anthony as well. And so I think there are some sort of promising signs there. And obviously they knocked off Liverpool as well. So they've actually got some, like, they've won 3 games. The 2 games that they lost, they were terrible. And they're a really strange position right now. And it's, for something like power rankings, it's really hard to sort of even sort of place them in the.
Yeah, I was going to say,
anywhere.
I think being fifth in the power rankings is very generous, considering they're 8th in the league table with a negative goal difference at the moment. That they've won all 3 of the games they've won by one singular goal, and then the games they've lost, I mean, they got pumped by Brentford, and then Brighton really just could have won by about 3 or 4 goals if Brighton knew how to score. So I think Manchester United's problem is scoring goals this season. They clearly, outside of the Brentford game where lots of things changed, their back line is sort of shored up. They've got a new back line there. They're sort of gelling together and defending quite well. And I guess their thinking is Anthony the man to sort of bring them the flair that's going to score the goals.
Yeah, also on that Damo, aside, so they did beat Liverpool, but their next 2 wins are against Southampton and Leicester.
Beat them 1-0 each. Like, scraped by.
So
relegation candidates.
Yeah. I think they're just a massive question mark, and it'll be interesting to see how they go against Arsenal this week. Just to kind of,
I just think the Liverpool game would have been such a turning point, though. Say they lost that again, then they've lost the first 3 games and they're at the bottom of the table. I mean, I know Southampton, they probably still would have got a result, but who knows? Like when you're 3-0 kind of thing, it's. I think the pressure can probably get to you. So I don't think you can really underline how important beating Liverpool was for Man United.
I think that's a great shout, Mikey. I totally agree. Manchester United, I think, are one of those teams where you look at them now, and it's going to be fascinating where they are in a month's time, both from a power rankings perspective, but also just results and performances. I think there's a lot of growth potential for that team. But obviously
Pascal Gross potential.
But yeah, so we'll revisit that again in a month's time. In 6th position, I've got Newcastle. Newcastle obviously had some good results, being that they drew against City, but they've only had 1 win so far. But I've still put them as high as 6th, and that's based purely on the strength of who they've played. They've had a pretty tough run. They played Brighton as well. They drew with City as well, and there was one other team that they played who escaped me, but they've had a pretty difficult run, and they'd be very pleased to, I guess, be with the results that they've got to date. Fulham, I've got in 7th, and they're the biggest mover overall, or at least the biggest positive mover in our anti-power rankings, because I think everyone thought that Fulham were just going to be absolute garbage, right? We thought this is going to be the same Fulham from previous seasons. We thought, geez, I just can't wait to see the back of them. Hopefully they get relegated midway through the season just so that we don't have to see them again. But they have been an absolute revelation. I think Mitrovic has just been a man possessed and just continues to score goals. I think a lot of people were really surprised about their performance in the first week against Liverpool, and you could probably make a case that maybe Liverpool are still a little bit shell-shocked from just that game alone. But boys, do you think I've been too generous by putting Fulham up in 7th?
I think calling, we do the power rankings in real time, right? So in real time, yeah, they're probably up there as one of the sort of shock movers in what everyone thought they would be. The big question was, can Mitrovic score goals? They're very heavily reliant on Mitrovic's goals, and he scored 6 in 6 goals in the Premier League, which I think a lot of people didn't think he could do. But at the moment, Fulham are looking good. And I think the question with Fulham is, can they stop conceding? And I remember that was what my sort of worry about them when I did the preseason preview is Fulham conceded a lot of goals in the championship last year. They just scored bucket loads in the championship. And could they stop conceding them in the Premier League? And if you look at the start of the season, I think Fulham have already, their goal difference is 0. So they've conceded a fair few goals for a team in the top half of the league. And I think if the goals that have been free flowing, particularly from Mitrovic, start drying up, Fulham could be on the back end of some pretty tough losses.
The other challenge I think for Fulham is that, especially with this year being more condensed than previous years, it's going to be even harder for them to maintain that intensity that they've shown. Excuse me, that they've shown so far in this season. So I don't think anyone is expecting them to continue to be as good as they've been, but they have to continue to keep getting results if they're going to want to stay, I guess, mid-table. It seems like a really obvious thing to say, but they need to, I guess, not just put out good performances, but get results when they do play well, and get results when they don't play well as well, if they're any hope to avoid relegation. Next up in 8th, I've put Leeds. Obviously, that big win over George's boys, Chelsea, which I don't think anyone really saw coming. That was one of their 2 wins. They had 2 draws and a loss as well. They probably should have beaten Everton and Southampton as well after giving away Leeds, but but obviously a really impressive start to the season for Leeds, and they were a team that most people were expecting to sort of be around the relegation zone. So Jesse Marsch has done a pretty incredible job, if nothing else, just at the very beginning of the season. Next, I've got Southampton. Southampton, another team that a lot of people were expecting to struggle. And given that they've played I think 4 teenagers or 5 teenagers in one point, and I think in their back 5 at one point they had Kyle Walker-Peters, who I think is 24 or just turned 25. I think he was their youngest player, which oldest player. Which just speaks to just how good and how young this Southampton team have been, but obviously a really good start for Southampton as well. Next up is Brentford. They're in 10th. I put them in 10th, and that's about where they are on the table right now. But there were a few people that were expecting them to struggle a little bit more. Boys, do you think Brentford fans would be happy with how they're going so far, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think Tommie, they've sorry, Damo. I think they've been. I think they've got the wins that they should have got, and also they've picked up a few points, against the Man U's, and they beat Leeds last night. So I think they're sort of on track for a very safe mid-table finish if they keep this up. No second season syndrome at the moment, so I think they'd be pretty happy. And Ivan Toney is just on absolute fire. So
I think the question I'd have over Brentford at the moment is they've had a relatively easy run of fixtures comparatively to a lot of teams to start the season. I mean, they've played a few teams that would have been considered pre-season to be bottom half or relegation. If you look at Leicester, Everton, Fulham, Leeds, the only two fixtures in there that probably stood out as their toughest two fixtures were Palace and Manchester United, which ironically they got points out of both.
Yeah, but I'd take going down just to beat, if I'm a Brentford fan, to beat Man United 4-0. Like, season over, I'm happy.
See you in 2 years' time when they're back in the Prem. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think you'd be disappointed at all being a Brentford fan at the moment. It's looking pretty positive. They've scored a bucket load of goals. I think there's probably only City have scored more goals in the league than Brentford this year, I think. If you factor in last night's 5 goals, which
15 goals.
True, yeah. Who was it? Was it Liverpool as well? They got 9 as well, which I guess obviously just blows out their goal difference. But yeah, I think I think it's probably the 3 of them. They've been the highest goal scorings, isn't it? City, Brentford, and Liverpool.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so Brentford ran out the top 10 of our anti-power rankings, and you probably noticed there's a couple of teams that have been conspicuous by their absence. You should be able to see now, I've just loaded up the 11th through to 20th, and there's a couple of big names in there as well. You've got Liverpool. They're the big losers out of all of this. Everyone was expecting that they would finish probably top 4, an average ranking of second. That's where most people thought that they would finish, or thereabouts. But I've put them at 11th because Liverpool not only have been getting some pretty poor results, but have also had a bunch of pretty poor performances as well. I mentioned the Fulham game already and how they were just sort of shocked by, I guess, the intensity of Fulham there. But they've also had a couple other. Obviously, they lost against Manchester United as well. But just it's been it's just been a really rough start to the season for Liverpool. They've obviously had some, like I mentioned, poor form. They've also had a whole bunch of injuries as well. I think they're down to just like three central midfielders, and they've had to bring in Artur from Juventus on loan as well. So that's obviously they'll be hoping that he turns out to be a useful signing for them. But then also Darwin Nunez, he got sent off, I think the first ever red card under Klopp during his reign at Liverpool, which, I mean, I find that hard to believe, but it's apparently, I know it's apparently true though, which blows me away, but great stat. And also, what I did love about this, and we've talked about this a few times with Jose Mourinho, how in his 3rd season everything just falls apart. But there's a sort of a similar sort of curse that sort of talked about with Jurgen Klopp, where he did 7 years at Mainz, 7 years at Dortmund, and this is his 7th year at Liverpool. And some people are suggesting that this is the equivalent of Jose Mourinho's 3 years, and it might just all fall apart. And maybe, I mean, it's going to be incredible if he does end up not lasting the season here at Liverpool, just for the banter of Klopp having an equivalent of Jose Mourinho's 3-year curse. But if there has been some talk of there being a Klopp 7-year curse as well, which
a 7-year curse isn't too bad though, is it? It's
a
good run.
You probably take that. Some clubs have a 7-month curse or a 7-week curse. So. And wasn't it Damo? You shared that that spreadsheet of Liverpool's average age, didn't you? In the
I was going to say that sort of my one of my agendas this season is Liverpool aren't as good as everyone think they are anymore. I don't think they have improved the same way every other team around the top end of the league has improved. I think they've got relatively the same sort of squad with just a couple of additions. And yeah, I like to joke that the average age of the squad is their downfall. And, you know, it's a bit of a joke, but it's also a bit of a, you know, when Klopp took over 7 years ago, the average age of the squad was like 25 and now it's 30. So that kind of tells you that no one's really changed in terms of the main players in the squad. He's kept the bulk of them around.
Yeah, that regeneration hasn't really occurred. And also, you know, Klopp drives them pretty hard. And if the core players are all the same, they're going to run out of steam eventually, you'd think. So maybe this is the down year.
And on my agenda is Virgil van Dijk isn't as good as everyone thinks he is.
Yeah.
Some people go on, George.
Oh, that defending where he just sort of bent over for that shot. Which game was a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, against Manchester United, I think it was. He defends with his aura.
Yeah, that's right. If we could share that meme now, it would be fantastic. But yeah.
Oh, the memes that came out of that were incredible, right? Like, and I guess the other thing that it's actually really great that you brought that up. The one thing I did really appreciate out of that whole situation was how James Milner absolutely gave him a bollocking afterwards, basically telling him, you have to go and press the ball. Like, you can't just stand there and defend with your aura. So, I mean, I knew James Milner was a big character in that dressing room, but man, like, I think that takes big balls to go and give someone like Van Dijk just an absolute bollocking after something like that. It shows that, yeah, in that dressing room, like no one's really safe from or free from criticism. All right, so if Liverpool were the biggest droppers, with the second biggest droppers, you had Crystal Palace, put them in 12th. They're pretty much around where most people would have expected. They've had 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses. I would say Crystal Palace are doing all right, just coasting along, doing their thing, In 13th place, though, Chelsea, George's boys. I had them, according to our average ranking, they're down 8 places from an average position of 5th, which I think even still was probably quite low compared to the last couple of years. But down in 13th place, boys. Well, George, let's get you to talk a little bit about this. But what's gone wrong at Chelsea so far this season?
Well, I think I alluded to this in the Premier League preview pod, Tommie. It's been a pretty disorganised pre-season. They've brought in a lot of players. They've got rid of a lot of players. There's been a fair bit of unrest in the squad. Tuchel's been helping Big Todd Bowley out with the transfers and trying to manage a squad as well. And, they didn't have a massive pre-season together. A fair few guys have come in, on deadline day or, whilst the season has basically started. So it's just been a bit disorganized. They haven't had a lot of time to work together. Some key injuries as well, Kante, Kovacic being out. So it just hasn't clicked yet. And, I think it's just a matter of time before it does. But yeah, the defense has been a bit of a shambles. Mendy's been out of form, but I just think it's just that the time, they haven't had the time together on the training pitch. And, it shows in all the games where there's been a lot of mistakes. There's been a lack of cohesion. And, that's going right through the club. So I think now the transfer window's closed. A positive, lucky result on against your boys, Tommie, and
very lucky.
Very lucky. But yeah, so I think it's just been that lack of cohesion and the the unrest with just what's been happening with the transfers, who's in, who's out. That sort of thing has not helped, and it shows. It shows on the pitch.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, George, because I think if you look at sort of what Thomas Tuchel has done defensively in his career as a manager, his sort of idea is he starts the same defensive structure every single game, twice a week, whatever it is. He very rarely rotates his sort of defensive structure, and that's what he builds his game off. And I think the whole point around, were Chelsea going to sign Fofana? Was Reece James going to re-sign his contract? And whatever else was going on. And I think, was Alonso going to leave? All that kind of stuff. And now that all of that has been, like you said, closed off, the transfer window's done. Now he's got his defense. Now it's settled. Now he's got the opportunity to build on that, because I think if you look at Chelsea, out of anyone in sort of the top half of the league, they've arguably been the worst defensively, which is, you would have expected them to be, if not the best, one of.
Yeah, and they've spent the most money on defenders, ironically. So,
and I think Reece James just re-signed a new contract in the last couple of days as well. So maybe even in the last 24 hours.
Yeah,
It's
no,
huge.
he's re-signed a long-term deal, and they've done some good business. So James is quite young, Fafana's very young, Cucurella's not that old. So they've tried to regenerate their back line and build depth across the back five, which Tuchel likes to play. 3 defenders and 3 centre backs and 2 wing backs. So we've got basically 2 players for every position there now, and so hopefully that sort of solidifies that back line, and we've got some cover in for Kante as well, because we basically only had 1 defensive midfielder. So
I think my I was going to say, sorry, George, just to interrupt, but I think my favorite part of Big Daddy Todd's business over the transfer window was he went full American and did a trade.
Yeah.
Well, just another thing on Chelsea's transfers. Are you looking forward to re-signing Billy Gilmore for triple the price in a few years?
Yeah, of course. So that's the way we do it. Sell them, let them get experience, and that the loan thing really works. So it's better when we sell them. It's historically.
Buy high, sell low.
Yeah,
Chelsea.
exactly.
Before we move on, I do just want to. You mentioned about Tuchel being a little bit sort of distracted. I think we can all relate a little bit to when you get a new boss and yet they come into a job and you've got to train them, and that's basically what Tuchel's had to do, right? He's basically had to train his boss for the last 2 weeks and run a football team. So that's tough. I do feel for him a little bit.
Looking a bit stressed.
Just imagine him trying to explain the offside rule.
Yeah.
He's got the salt shakers on the table.
Big Daddy Todd must not be buying enough unbranded caps for Tommie Tuchel.
The one thing I would say, boys, just to close off on Chelsea, is the Spurs game was some of the best football I've actually seen them play with Tuchel as manager. So ironically, I've probably seen them play the best and the worst in the last month. So that just shows some of the inconsistencies there. But at their best, with Sterling looking really sharp, I think they can do some damage. But yeah, it's just the other issues we talked about holding them back.
Well, annoyingly there, Tottenham-Chelsea was the one football game when nobody was talking about the football game.
Yeah. Just more memes. Hello and welcome to More Than a Game. This is just the Chelsea podcast, apparently, though. So
more than a handshake.
We are going to move on, though. Next up was Bournemouth. They put them in 14th. Even though they've been spanked, they had probably the hardest fixtures of anyone so far this season. Everyone was predicting they would finish 20th. I've put them in 14th because they won a game. I think they've, despite all of the bad results that they have had, they managed to win a game. And I think at this point, the fact that they achieved that is a pretty big achievement. After that, Nottingham Forest put them at 15th. Everyone was expecting they would finish 17th, but I've given them a bit of a bump because they've signed 21 fucking players. So I think that's pretty good for them.
We've heard of the new coach bounce. What about the new squad bounce? Do we get that?
That's a good shout.
I look at this, right, and you look at the complete contrasts of a club like Bournemouth and then a club like Nottingham Forest. Bournemouth is one of the least inspiring promotions that I can remember in recent memory. They've signed no one. They've sacked their manager after a couple of games. They've shown no intent to want to stay in the Premier League at all. And then Nottingham Forest have spent probably outside of Chelsea the most money of anyone in the league. They've bought 20 odd players. None of the players that got them promoted are still in the team. And yet we've got Bournemouth above Nottingham Forest in our power rankings.
And
where Nottingham Forest have shown all the desire to stay up, spent all the money.
And Damo, just on top of that, Bournemouth beat them last night 3-2.
It's even better.
Oh dear. Next up, I'll put Everton at 16th. They're winless, but they have got some okay results. And to be honest, I think they're doing better than what I would have expected them to do. They're still two. I still put them 2 positions down on what everyone expected them to finish though. So they're a bit of a team where I think a lot of people aren't really sure about what to expect. And so I guess the next month is really going to sort of shore things up, I think, in a lot of people's minds, what Everton are this season.
They're very Frank Lampard, aren't they? They're just a
Yeah.
little bit boring.
And just not very good. I put West Ham and
yeah.
Sorry, George?
I was saying, and Calvert-Lewin looks like he's out for a little while, so
It's a
Yeah,
big
it's
loss.
a big loss.
Oh, good.
And replacing him with Neil Malpay, well, geez, you just know you're going to struggle to score goals.
You'll have good XG though.
Yeah.
It's just no goals.
I've put West Ham in 17th. They're obviously big droppers down from the expected 10th. They've obviously had a pretty rough start to the season, a mix of some unlucky results. I think they hit the post 3 times against Forest and ended up losing 1-0, had a penalty saved, and then they had that disallowed goal against Chelsea overnight as well. So yeah, a mixed bag of poor performances and poor results for them mean that they've only got the one win, 1 draw, and 3 losses so far. So I think they'll be relieved that they've got European games to play as well, so that gives them extra matches for them to bet in some of those new signings. Because I think they signed like 8 players. They've spent the 3rd most out of the Premier League, so plenty of work there for David Moyes to do.
Are you happy, Tommie, with the way they've been playing, or not at all?
Oh, look, what was it? The game against Brighton was just absolutely horrific. That was awful. But I tell you, the performance against Chelsea last night, performance against Nottingham Forest was good, just unlucky.
Spurs game, I thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, Spurs game as well. I thought they were good, and that probably was their best result so far of the season. That they were terrible against Villa as well, and just were lucky that Villa were worse. So, good result there though. So, like I said, I think this is a team that they're not going to be stuck around 17th for long, but they need games, and they need to I guess improve quick smart. But all the signs are there, and I think their transfer business has been incredible. I've got to say, I've been really, really happy with the players that they brought in. But as we've seen with Nottingham Forest, it's just going to take time for some of those players to settle in.
You ordered a Paquetá jersey, Tommie, or what's going on?
No, I'm not buying any more jerseys with names on them after the curse is real.
Are you going to get a jersey with the Conference League badge to commemorate playing teams like FCSB and Silkeborg?
Hey, Steaua Bucharest have won a European Cup. Thank you very much.
I think
you're welcome.
Got a little defensive there, didn't
Tommie, I think you putting West Ham 17th in this ranking is a little bit of a pessimistic fan view of sort of them playing. I think on the balance of the way they've been playing and sort of the chances they've been creating, I think then they're actually, like, the goals are coming for West Ham. They just haven't been yet. And I think that's their biggest problem, is they haven't scored goals. I think they've scored 3 goals in their first, 5 or 6 games in the league. But outside of that, I think they actually have, I looked at this earlier. You might have to fact check it, but I think they've got the highest differential between XG and goals scored in terms of their XG. You know, I think they've scored 3 goals, but their XG was like 7 or something like that. So that's the highest differential between what their XG and goals scored is of anyone in the league.
I can't tell you how much I don't know what that means.
And look, I think you're probably right, Damo. Like, I am being quite harsh on West Ham because the
expectations are high, though, because of the money they've spent, because of the players they've signed, and it's fair to be critical of their performances so far when they've done that in the transfer window.
And like their performances against Villa and who's the other one, Brighton, were particularly poor. Like they were sort of bottom 5 performances. So having said that, though, some of their other performances, like against Forest and I think Spurs, they were very much sort of like top half performances though. So it's tricky. But look, I don't want to sort of over egg the pudding and put them too high up the table just based off of XG results. So, but
I know,
look,
but it's a good indicator that things are happening.
Moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and look, I'm not too concerned. Like I said, I'll be pretty confident that they're going to be moving up those up the power rankings and up the actual table in the next couple of weeks. So the signs are positive.
And Mikey, for the next pod, we'll get the XG differential table up as well.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
In our bottom three of the power rankings, we've got Wolves. So they're winless, 3 draws and two losses. Just can't seem to score goals, and even when they do score them, they get disallowed. Which I don't know if you guys caught. Raul Jimenez trying to celebrate with like some, like he had a like a pirate eye patch.
I saw that. And,
what's it called? Like it's not a monocle. What's that called? Like the telescopic,
like a one-eye binocular, whatever they call it.
What are they called? But it was a bit ridiculous, and like it was real Kareem Bullet areas from the A-League where that was disallowed. He was just running off to the crowd. Second last, we got Leicester, who obviously have just been awful. And I saw Tifo did a dissection of Leicester's performance against Manchester United, and like Leicester look like relegation candidates the way they're playing at the moment. And I don't think anyone would have expected that. It's really surprising that it's not that surprising that they haven't had good results, but the manner in which they're playing, that is surprising because they've been just so awful so far this season. They haven't won a game. I think they're still pointless. And then next week they play Aston Villa in what I'm dubbing El Sacico because Aston Villa are under a lot of pressure as well. They had a pretty decent result last night against Man City, but still I think are under a lot of pressure.
Gerrard's next to go.
Yeah, or wouldn't be surprised if Brendan Rodgers or Gerrard doesn't survive El Sacico in all seriousness though. And
if Claudio Ranieri didn't survive winning the league and being in the last 16 of the Champions League, I mean, what hope has Rodgers got?
Exactly right. And rounding out our anti-power rankings, we've got Aston Villa. I've put them last, and even though they'd won a game, I thought they would just absolutely dire in all of the games that I'd seen them play. And I thought, no, you know what? I didn't think they deserved to be anything other than last. So that's where I've put them. Boys, have I been too harsh on Aston Villa?
They've stitched you up. They've stitched you up with drawing against Man City last night, Tommie. That's all I know.
I don't think anyone has looked more poor going forward this season than Aston Villa. I feel like they're just creating absolutely nothing. They lack any sort of imagination. They've scored 3 goals or 4 goals if you include last night. And probably don't even deserve to have scored that many goals. Like they just look so unimaginative and boring.
I think they probably peaked in the Queensland Champions Cup, and it's all been downhill since then.
Didn't none of their Premier League squad come to Queensland? So.
Probably not.
Well, there's a problem.
I think they've really lacked like an identity, cohesion, all of that. You had the Tyrone Mings saga of stripping him of the captaincy, and then Diego Carlos doing his Achilles and then putting him straight back in the team. So yeah, it doesn't look good, and the pressure's mounting. And they've invested quite a lot of money as well. So there's going to be some pressure on Gerrard. I think he's got more leeway than probably Rodgers, which is strange. But I think they'll persist with him for now.
What surprises me is that they've bought all of these players and none of them seem to be any good.
So true.
But look, that pretty much rounds out our anti-power rankings. Let us know if you think we've stuffed any of them up, or you think the likes of Liverpool or Chelsea should be lower, or West Ham or some other team should be higher. Before we finish off the pod, though, I'm very pleased to be able to announce we've got a prize to give away as part of MTAG FPL. So a couple of weeks ago, I said that we had 67 paid up participants this year, which is great. It means we've got $670 to give away over the course of the season. We're going to have $30 monthly prizes. We're also going to have an overall first prize of $250, which is great too. So before we get into the prize announcement, though, I just wanted to roll off some of the best team names that I picked out. Josh Bribbling's haha FPL team go brr. That was
I lost it at that. That was great.
Todd Blake's 3 Perisic Mafia. That one, I liked that one. That's creative. Hadn't seen something like that before. Friend of the pod, John Stomo, his team Botman and Robin. Thought that was quite clever too. Adam Thompson's Tielemans Square. I think I've mentioned this one on the pod before, but still, that's a nice one. That's very good, very creative. And finally, another one which is a bit of a flashback is Gangsters Allardyce, which is nice. Nick McFarlane's team as well. Another one that I really liked. Looking forward to this season going on, but look, before we wrap things up, the monthly prize winner, they got 426 points in a pretty big month with lots of goals being scored. The winner on 426 points was Adam Bell. So congratulations, Adam. We'll be in touch over the next couple of days trying to get your prize to you, but congratulations. You've already made your money back, which is great for you. In terms of the MTAG panel, though, we've got some interesting situation here.
Just log off here, boys.
Yeah, we'll get to you in a second,
this
George.
Is usually when I log off, but
Damo, you have got every right to be nice and noisy right now.
Damo's turned it around.
You were leading going into
until last week.
Yeah, exactly, which is pretty disappointing, I imagine, for you. But you were leading. You seem like you fucked up a little bit, but
I brought Mason Mount in.
What, in the middle of the night as well?
Yep. Yeah, that's the glory of being sleep deprived when you got a new baby. As I woke up at 4 a.m. and had a notification on my phone that was like, the window shuts in an hour, make your changes. And I panicked. And so I just swapped Zaha out, Mason Mount in, and fuck my life.
Ouch. But
safe to say I traded them back straight away after that game week.
Oof. Damon, you're still 5th overall though, which is still pretty decent. You're 30 points behind Adam. So it seems like you're still going all right. So in terms of the other panelists, I think Mikey, for some reason I didn't write your position down, but I think you're about 17th from memory.
Got 13th here, mate. 13th. Sorry,
I shortchanged you there.
Put some respect on his name.
I know, right? Good stuff. Good stuff, Mikey. I'm in 31st. Noteworthy that Colby's in 46th, so beating Colby. Just want to get that out there nice and early. George is in 61st. And Killian, who is a semi-regular on the pod as well, he's dead last. And Killian's pretty solid at the old FPL. I don't know what's going on there.
Because either he's not looked at his team once, or he's made some big choices and they haven't paid off.
Now, one thing I do want to mention before we wrap up is that I know, George, we did have there was a bit of confusion from my side about who one FPL participant was, and it turned out to be your girlfriend, partner. I don't know what you're referring to her as, but it's very close between you and her in the MTAG FPL league. So, mate, I'm going to be paying very close attention to that, because I think she's a real chance to knock you off in FPL this year. I don't know if you're just being polite, but look, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that pans out.
G-Man usually goes with my strategy of pick it and leave it. So let's see if that works out for him.
No, I've been making transfers this year and it hasn't been working. So
wait, for your team or for her team?
No. I think I'm just going to forget to remind her about the cutoffs for each week, and bit of sabotage, bit of that home sabotage.
Dear. Too competitive, mate. But look, that does wrap things up for this week on the pod. It's been great having the three of you on, and it's also been great having all of the listeners join along for the ride as well. I'm going to post on the socials those images of what our power rankings are, so you don't have to try and sort of listen along and figure out and take notes and figure out what they actually were. But look, as we said on recently on the pod, we're looking at doing sort of monthly pods. So we'll be back in about sort of 4 or 5 weeks' time. But until then, enjoy the football.